Hey guys, so this is going to be a video lecture on notes number 2 of the Great Depression Unit, GDND, notes 2, causes of the stock market crash. So we're going to go ahead and open up the notes so you can see what we're going through. All right, so you see at the top, causes of the Great Depression. So this is what ultimately happened. So we were talking about in the last unit that we had, which was the roaring 20s, that the economy was good. Everything was positive, optimistic. So what went wrong? What was going on during that time period that ultimately led to this disaster that is the Great Depression? Now, before we get into the reasons why the Great Depression began, I want to go over this top part with you right here. Now, these two things right here, this line here at the top and the bottom one, is how you help an economy. This one right here is how you help an economy, and this is how you hurt an economy. All right. Now, as you can see, what it has in common is jobs and money, because both of them will either help or hurt. So I'm going to take this part here, and I'm going to open up this image of the cyclone that I created to explain to you how it goes. So on the left side, when an economy goes up, it is because it adds new jobs. And if we look back to the notes again, see, here is this part here is what we're talking about right now. All right. So when an economy adds new jobs, as you see with this image, it means that there's more new jobs, which means people have jobs they didn't have before, which means now they have money they didn't have before, because they get a paycheck now. And because of that, they spend more. Now, what do they spend it on? Everything. They spend it on bills, they spend it on food, they spend it on restaurants, clothing, everything. When there is more spending, it means business goes up. There's more business. Now, what happens when business goes up? It means that they have more money and they create more jobs. And now there's even more people that have more jobs, which means there's even more people who didn't have money before who are spending money. And even more spending is done, and even more business is created. And guess what? When more business is created, again, more jobs. So it's a spiral that it goes up. More jobs, more money, more spending, more business, which equals more jobs again, which equals more money, spending, business, and jobs. But it works both ways. When an economy is destroyed or it goes down, as you see on the right side, it's because it goes down. It's because it loses jobs. So it starts up here, all right? Because of the Great Depression and the stock market crashing, we lost millions of jobs, which meant all of a sudden millions of people had less money, and then millions of people are going to stop spending, and then millions of money of businesses aren't going to get it anymore. So what happens when businesses go down by that much? Yeah, they fire people. So that means even more people have less jobs, even more money is had by them, and even less spending and even less business. And once again, when business goes down again, well, that's right, they fire people. So in order to fix an economy, you add jobs, and it leads this and this and this and this. When an economy is hurt, it's because they lost jobs. All right. So now we're going to get into section 1, causes of the stock market crash. Now, as you see, there's 3 there. These 3 all cause jobs to be lost. And when you have one of these, like say just this causing jobs to be lost, that's a problem. When you have that one plus this one, that's a big problem. And when you have 3 different things that cause jobs to be lost, that's how you get the stock market to crash. So first thing is industries in trouble. What happens is industries that we had relied on to create so many jobs during the 1800s, in the 1900s weren't creating those jobs anymore. Why? Because we had new technologies that replaced those jobs, like coal. Coal used to be a main source for power, for energy, in order to power machines. But now we have electricity. So why would you want to power a machine with coal when electricity is going to be able to make it cleaner and safer and easier? You don't. So coal industry goes down, and lots of jobs are created of people who used to work in the coal mines, picking the coal. Railroads are going to go down. Why? Because of cars. Right? We have the Model T. Because of the Model T, the railroad industry goes down. But see, the railroad industry affects other industries as well, because when the railroads went down, the trains, they use coal for power. So if the train industry goes down, once again, the coal industry gets hit again. But lumber and steel also go down because the railroads are made out of lumber and steel. So when the railroad industry went down, coal, lumber, and steel also went with them. Jobs, jobs, jobs. Even new homes were being built, which affected lumber industry again, and even furniture industries. So when all these major industries struggled, it meant loss of jobs. And as we go again back to the cyclone, loss of jobs equals less money equals less spending equals less business. When business goes down, once again, jobs, less money, less spending, less business, less jobs. And like I said, had industries in trouble been the only one, it would have been bad, but not horrible. What we realized was the 1920s economy that looked really good, that was positive, that looked like everything was great, wasn't that great. Our economy of the 1920s kind of looked like this big red shiny apple. Perfect. Look at that thing. That looks amazing. Glistening water off the side. That looks like you take a bite, it's going to be nice and juicy. Perfect visual of an apple, just like the economy looked perfect. But when you cut the apple open, we realize that it looked more like this, right? Rotted, full of worms. It, Obviously, we don't want to take a bite of an apple and look like this, and we don't want our economy inside to look like this. So our economy of the 20s looked great, but in reality was kind of like this. Each one of these little worms that you see there is one of these problems. So industries in trouble, lost a lot of jobs, hurt the economy. But then we get crisis in farming. We talked about this in the previous unit, where farmers took out loans to get land and equipment for other farms, but then when the war was over and the world didn't need a whole bunch of extra food from us, the demand for crops fell hard. So farmers who had all these extra crops couldn't sell it. So either you sold it for very, very little money or it rotted, which meant you're not making any money. But again, the banks still want their payment for their land. So what ultimately happened to a lot of farmers is they lost their farms. And the thing is, okay, you're a farmer, you lose your land, that's one person. But unfortunately, you also had farm workers work with you. So when you have, say, 20 or 30 farm workers working your farm and then you lose your farm, that means 20 or 30 people just lost their job. You multiply that situation by a lot of farmers who got into trouble throughout the country when it came to the 1920s. That's once again lots and lots of jobs lost. So we lost jobs with industries in trouble and once again with farming. Third reason, and this pushed everything over the edge, way too much credit. Right? Today in 2022, people get themselves into all kinds of credit problems. Why? Because it's easy. They make it easy for you to charge and charge and charge and charge on a credit card. Now, there are some protections to try to hopefully have you not get too much debt. And that is that they are interconnected with our internet and with your social security number. So when you go apply for a credit card, they use your social security number to essentially run your credit. What does your credit look like? And based on how much money you make and how much debt you have, each company will say, this is how much we're willing to give you in a credit card. The better your credit, the more they'll give you. But if your credit is horrible, or you have too much debt, they're going to tell you no credit card for you. That's a way for them to protect you today. But this is the 1920s we're talking about. There is no credit cards. There is no internet. There is no even social security number. That doesn't exist till the 30s. So how did they get credit? Basically with their word. They went to apply at one store, say for a refrigerator. They told them how much they made and how much debt they had. But it was just if they wanted to tell the truth. And if they really wanted a washing machine or a refrigerator or a Model T, it'd be easy for them to stretch the truth and ultimately get approved for the credit. But at the end, you owe a lot of debt now. So when it's time to get your paycheck, you get your money, you pay for your house bills, you pay for your food, and the rest of it goes to credit. Then the next week, same thing. Food, bills, credit. Food, bills, credit. So because all your money is going to your debt, what are you not doing anymore? That's right, you're not spending. And if we go back to that image, what happens when you stop spending? It means less business. Less business, less jobs, less money, less business, all the way down here. So once again, more people lost their jobs. So jobs lost, jobs lost, jobs lost. And there goes the stock market crash. So now the stock market crashes, you're in the Great Depression. Now it's time to suffer, honestly. People are living on the streets in the shanty towns that we talked about. They're hungry, they don't eat every day. And when they look at their government, they ask for help. At the time, the Republican Party was in charge of the government when the stock market crashed. And they believed in something called Trickle-Down Economics. This idea is basically that you give rich people tax breaks, and they, with that extra money that they didn't pay in taxes, they create jobs. And if we look at the tornado or the spiral, the idea of trickle-down economics is that you give people who's rich, who own companies, tax breaks. So if they were going to pay $2 million, they only pay $1 million. Now they have $1 million of savings when it comes to tax breaks. Now, what are they supposed to do because of trickle-down economics is, that's right, use that extra $1 million and create jobs. Perfect. We got more jobs. That means more people have money, more spending, more business, and even more jobs. Perfect. It's working. This idea of trickle-down economics to create jobs is working. But there's a little problem. The little problem is that trickle-down economics says they should use that extra money to spend jobs. It doesn't make them. So what does that mean? It means they get the tax break, but they don't necessarily have to actually create the jobs, only if they want to. And as we talked about corruption and greed throughout this year, that's exactly what happens, unfortunately, with trickle-down economics. This image here shows you that idea. That the money from the government here, where it says aid, this is supposed to be all those tax breaks. And the idea is that these tax breaks right here, all this money is supposed to lead to the people here at the bottom with a whole bunch of jobs. So basically, this is supposed to be here in jobs. Does it? No, because unfortunately, rich people end up taking a good chunk of it for themselves. And ultimately, what falls down to the poor who are living in the streets? A little drop of jobs versus what it should have been. Why? Because rich people don't have to create the jobs, they're just supposed to. What people needed, though, was they needed something like this. They needed direct relief. They needed instead of going to the rich, it goes straight across. And there's the gusher to the people, food and money directly to them. That's what they needed. Unfortunately for the Republicans, that's not what they believe in. Now, Herbert Hoover was president when the stock market crashed, when everything was good up to that day. So in 1928, when he ran for election, this was before the stock market, he won pretty easily. So this is an electoral college map that shows you how he won. This is before the stock market crash. Republicans were popular. The 20s looked good. So look at all the red states. All these people voted for Hoover and the Republicans. After the stock market crash and after Hoover and the Republicans did trickle-down economics that really didn't help people, people had another direction to go to. And that's going to be the Democratic Party with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who promised people exactly what they wanted: direct relief, food and money. And in the next election of 1932, this is what it looked like. What a difference. All red to all blue. People were tired of the Republicans, tired of Hoover, and they were definitely tired of trickle-down economics. All right, back to the notes. So section 3 is when the stock market actually crashes. As we went over the key terms, it's actually a 6-day period with Black Thursday starting it off. By itself, Black Thursday would have been really, really, really bad, but it wouldn't have destroyed the stock market. The problem is the really bad Thursday of stock market crashing was also followed by another really bad day on Monday, and then the worst day, Black Tuesday, October 29th, 1929, when the stock market finally just crashed. Many people had bought stocks on margin, which basically means they were borrowing money from the bank. The money was taking money that people were putting in their savings account to let other people to invest in the stock market. So when the stock market crashed, the banks went down with it. And you who had put your money in the bank, where it's supposed to be safe, all of a sudden, not only is it not safe, it's gone. So the stock market crash is going to affect regular people because they lose their jobs when all these companies go away, and they lose their savings when it was in the bank. So this 6 days, the Black Week, really destroyed everything. And like I mentioned, banks went with them. After the crash, many people panicked. They went to the bank, give me my money, give me my money. But of course, the banks didn't have it because they had been invested in the stock market. So many banks closed, like permanently, not like till next weekend, permanently. There was no protections for your savings account yet. There will be later, but not yet. So you lost everything. Population of 25% of the population became unemployed. This is a huge, massive number. We've never had anything close to then of 25% unemployment then or later. In the 90 years since then, we haven't even gone close to 25%. It was really horrible. People living on the streets. It was really, really bad. And it wasn't just us. The world went with us. Our economy is like roots that go all over the world. Our economy is connected to other economies around the world. So when our economy went down the drain, we took them with us. This was a global economic disaster. Europe, Asia, all of them, they had they went into the Great Depression as well. This is not an American thing only. Lastly, results devastated the U.S. economy for sure. We've never had an economy so bad as in the Great Depression. Black Tuesday lost by itself $14 billion worth of wealth. In the combined week, $30 billion. Today's money, $30 billion back then, is today about $600 billion that would have been lost in businesses and wealth, just gone. As a result of this disaster, a lot of people started getting very, very tight with their money, super cheap, because they counted every penny. That's all they had, every penny. There was also, unfortunately, a lot of psychological stresses where people couldn't handle it. They had a really nice life before the stock market crashes. They're living in a shanty town. There is no hope for them. And unfortunately, many people couldn't handle it and committed suicide. There was a lot of suicides during this era because this was just a dark and messed up era. And there was very little help coming from the government, not until FDR brought the New Deal in. All right, thank you.